Welcome back. This is week 49 of the 2025 Bluewater Auto Restoration Deep Dive. We drop these new deep dives every Saturday morning, really aiming to give you the shortcuts you need to get up to speed on the topics that matter. And just before we jump in, we need to let you know this information is presented by Bluewater Auto Restoration. Okay, so today we're taking a bit of a detour. We're steering away from the auction block, leaving the Blue Book values behind for a moment. We're not asking what did it sell for. Instead, we're diving deep into what actually happens in the garage. We're focusing on those games you can't easily count, the whole restoration process itself. It's obviously pretty fundamental if you want to understand the classic car world. From wrench to wallet, the emotional ROI of a restoration.
That's exactly right. For years, maybe decades, the main yardstick for classic cars was always financial ROI, FROI, right? That's the straightforward calculation. Purchase price plus all your restoration costs versus what you finally sell it for. Cold, hard cash. But here's the thing. If that was the only measure, frankly, this whole hobby probably wouldn't exist anymore because, let's be honest, the numbers often just don't stack up financially. So our mission today is really to dig into something else, something far more consistent, often more lasting, and you could argue much more valuable. That's the emotional ROI. We're going to try and analyze what really keeps classic car culture alive. It's not just about making a profit. It's about understanding the psychology, what motivates people. We need to look at the mental health side of things, the benefits of the actual work, how it helps create a legacy, why someone would pour thousands of hours into a dusty garage when they could be doing pretty much anything else.
Okay, good plan. Let's start by nailing down this term, emotional ROI. What exactly are we talking about here? So when we say emotional ROI, we mean the measurable personal value, the satisfaction someone gets back from all the time, the effort, the sheer passion they pour into a project. And crucially, this is separate from any financial gain. It's the value inside the process, not just the price tag on the finished car. And this isn't just some vague, fuzzy feeling, is it? The research actually breaks it down into real categories we can look at, almost like different kinds of currency. We're talking about things like personal fulfillment, mastering new skills. Then there's the power of nostalgia and connection. Community and identity play a huge role too, and one that often gets overlooked but is super important, the therapeutic benefit. These are the real payoffs we're focusing on today, the returns on that emotional investment.
Okay, so if we start the psychological side, the real foundation seems to be this deep sense of achievement, competence. I mean, think about what a restoration actually is. It's not one job. It's hundreds, maybe thousands of small, fiddly, interconnected problems. You need mechanical know-how, technical skills, maybe some understanding of metallurgy, painting, wiring, and just sheer persistence, right? Willpower. So when you actually manage to overcome those hurdles, maybe it's finally getting a seized engine unstuck, or you weld in a patch panel perfectly, or figure out some ancient electrical gremlin that success builds real measurable confidence. You know you did that. What's really interesting is how the intense focus needed for this kind of work, it mirrors what psychologists call the flow state. You see it in art, in music, and engineering. It's that feeling of being completely absorbed, where time just disappears because the challenge perfectly matches your abilities. You're actively creating order out of chaos, mastering something complex. That feeling, that's a psychological dividend. It sticks with you long after the project's done.
That idea of mastery is powerful. And you mentioned it connects to memory too, which leads us straight into this nostalgia effect you brought up. Because a classic car, it's never just a machine, is it? It's like a time capsule on wheels. It's a physical link to another era, maybe your youth or the time you got your first job, or perhaps a specific car a parent or grandparent owned, same model, maybe even the same color. Yeah, and this is where it gets really fascinating from a brain science perspective. The research suggests that restoring an object tied to a powerful memory, it actually lights up the brain's reward pathways. It feels chemically similar to achieving something major right now. You're not just remembering, you're physically rebuilding a piece of your past. That hands-on connection makes the emotional payoff of the whole build just massive.
Exactly, and that focused hands-on work, it provides another crucial benefit, which brings us to the therapeutic side. Think about modern life, right? Constant notifications, digital overload, abstract deadlines, always being on. Restoration offers a kind of enforced escape from that. Working on a car demands focus, like real focus. You can't rush body filler. You can't guess engine timing. You definitely can't be checking your phone while you're trying to decipher a wiring diagram from, 1972. It's almost a form of mindfulness, this kind of deliberate, tangible work. You have to be present, dealing with the real thing right in front of you. We see similar cognitive benefits in things like, say, gardening or intricate woodworking, even masonry. The garage becomes a sanctuary, a quiet zone where the problems are immediate and physical, a stripped bolt, a rusty patch instead of abstract and stressful. That mental break is a huge return.
And when that sanctuary eventually produces something beautiful, you get this kind of double whammy emotional return that starts to spill outside the garage, right? The first part is legacy creation. A well-restored car isn't just a hobby anymore. It becomes a physical, lasting family heirloom. You're not just fixing up an old car, you're kind of creating an artifact, something tangible that connects generations. Imagine knowing your grandkids might drive, or at least see, the car you brought back. That's a powerful, permanent emotional yield.
Undeniable.
And the second payoff, social validation. This is that positive feedback loop you get from other people noticing. When you finally roll it out to a local Cars and Coffee or a proper judge show, or even just post progress pics online, the admiration, the questions, wow, you did that, recognition of the patience and skill involved, that's a big moment.
People often call it the car show high, and the sources suggest it's actually comparable, neurologically speaking, to the buzz an artist gets from a successful gallery opening or maybe a scientist presenting years of research. You're being validated for the work, the effort, not just for owning a cool thing.
That makes total sense. It's the difference between buying it and building it. Okay, but before we get completely swept away by the warm, fuzzy feelings, we absolutely have to talk about the time commitment, because this is where financial ROI often goes completely off the rails, but it's also the foundation for this deep emotional ROI we're discussing.
Yeah.
So let's look at the time versus value equation. It's pretty sobering.
It really is.
A full frame-off, bare metal restoration. This isn't a couple of weekends. The data shows an average timeline of 12 to 36 months, and that's often working pretty consistently. For part-timers, it can stretch out much, much longer.
Years, sometimes.
Exactly. And quantify the labor just on a DIY basis, forget shop rates. We're talking an average of 800 to 2,000 labor hours.
2,000 hours. That's basically a full-time job for an entire year, unpaid.
Right. So you factor in the cost of parts, materials, maybe specialized tools, plus that massive time investment. The financial return often just craters, especially if you try to put even minimum wage value on your own time.
And that huge time barrier is precisely why understanding the emotional journey is so critical. You have to manage expectations. The research actually maps out 5 key emotional phases restorers tend to go through. It's like a roadmap for the feelings involved.
Okay, what are they?
First up is excitement, the discovery phase, that initial buzz, finding the car, the barn find dream, or maybe just the thrill of tearing it down when everything seems to come apart easily. Pure dopamine. Then, almost inevitably, comes phase 2, frustration, the reality check. This is when you uncover the hidden rust, the terrible previous repairs masked with filler, or realize the wiring is a total nightmare. Parts delays hit here, too. This is where projects stall, peak abandonment point.
The project car sitting under a tarp phase.
Exactly that phase. But if you push through that, you hopefully reach phase 3, flow, progress. This is the mid-build stage where things start clicking, parts are going back on the car, you're gaining confidence, seeing real results day to day, you get into a rhythm.
Yeah, that sounds better.
Much better. Then comes the reward. Phase 4, completion, euphoria, that first smell of fresh paint curing, the first turn of the key, hearing the engine fire up after years of silence. That's the emotional peak you've been working toward.
The payoff moment.
The big one. And then finally, phase 5, which is really our focus today, reflection. The ROI phase, this is after the initial excitement fades a bit. It's that quieter realization. Looking back, you see that the skills you learned, the memories made, the connections built, that sustained emotional return, it just completely outweighs the money and the sheer time you sink into it.
That realization really underscores the whole point, doesn't it?
It underpins everything, which is why comparing financial ROI and emotional ROI side by side is so revealing. The source data highlights stark differences that explain why people do this. Look at how you measure them. Financial ROI. Simple. Sale price minus costs. Done. Emotional ROI, that's measured internally. Sense of purpose, pride, identity, feeling competent. Much harder to quantify, but deeply felt.
Right. Money versus meaning, essentially.
Kind of, yeah. And predictability. Financial ROI is all over the place. Depends on market trends, what's sought at auction, the economy, highly variable. Emotional ROI. Much more consistent because you drive it. The satisfaction comes from the work itself, which you control.
Okay, I see the point about consistency, but I have to push back a little on minimal risk for emotional ROI. The sources mention that, but isn't there still a huge financial risk that directly impacts your emotional state? I mean, if the project balloons way over budget, causes stress at home, drains your savings, doesn't that torpedo the joy part, even if you learned a skill? Where's the line between passion and, well, financial recklessness chasing that feeling? Do the sources talk about opportunity costs?
That's a really important clarification, and you're right to raise it. The minimal risk specifically applies to the yield of the emotional investment, not the overall project risk. Meaning, yes, you absolutely risk the money. That's inherent. But the skills you gain, the confidence built, the memories created, those are yours to keep, regardless of the financial outcome. They can't be repossessed, you know? But to your point about financial stress killing the joy, absolutely. That's why managing expectations before you start is paramount. The restorer needs to frame the project internally. My primary goal here is personal satisfaction, legacy, skill building. Financial return would be a bonus, but it's not the point. Good. If you go in with that mindset, you essentially insulate your emotional ROI from the financial volatility. You accept the potential cost as the price of admission for the intangible rewards. Does that make sense?
It does. It's about setting the right internal success metrics from the outset, knowing why you're doing it. And the data seems to back that up overwhelmingly. We looked at several big polls of classic car owners, and the numbers on why people restore are really clear. Money is way down the list.
Way down.
The number one motivator. A huge 63% said personal satisfaction. That's the pride, the fulfillment we've been talking about. Number two, 52% said the project connected them with family or friends. Think about it, over half felt it strengthened relationships. That's a massive social return. And third, supporting your point about therapy, 44% reported improved mental focus and stress reduction from doing the work.
Now compare that to the profit motive. How many restored primarily for profit?
Only 18%, a tiny fraction compared to the personal drivers.
See, the vast majority aren't in it for the flip.
And here's the kicker. 70% kept the car for 5 years or more after the restoration was finished. If profit was the goal, you'd sell it the minute the paint was dry, right?
Exactly. That long ownership proves the value isn't in the sale, it's in the having, the using, the legacy, the emotion.